Hello, my name's Kelly James Barker. You're watching Spotlight on the Ozarks. My guest today is from Branson, Missouri. His name is Rod Phillips. And Rod and I have a lot of things in common, so you don't want to miss today's show. Come back right after these messages and watch Spotlight on the Ozarks.
J.R.'s Western Store. Get a kick out of life. Well, I'm a city boy, but I was born to roam. It takes a pair of boots to make me feel at home. It gives me some personality, you know. Some says this is me. When you want to get a kick out of life, go to J.R.'s and down and right. J.R.'s Western Store. Yeah, it's time you get a kick out of life.
Hello, and we're back with Spotlight on the Ozarks. My guest is Rod Phillips. Rod, good to have you on.
Nice to be here.
Thank you, sir. Now, Rod, you're from Branson, Missouri.
I am.
And how long have you lived there?
Since about 1986.
Okay. What made you move to Branson?
Well, I had been a musician my entire life, and I had been living in New Mexico for about 7 or 8 years before that. I had actually moved from Austin, Texas, briefly. But I was looking for a way to make a living, basically, that involved music and didn't involve traveling.
Okay. Well, and we was talking a while ago, you said you didn't want to play in bars.
Right.
You're a family man. So.
Yeah, I am. Nothing that there's nothing inherently bad about bars. I don't like smoke.
No.
But, that's not good for most singers.
No.
Some people manage to be good singers regardless, but I needed every help.
Yeah.
So
I played a lot of bars, and I know that smoke. That's why I finally got out.
Yeah.
And my last bar was probably 1996. And I told myself, if I ever get done with this New Year's Eve dance, no more. And so I haven't been back in one. So.
Well, my bar days were far from over, but Branson started me on a path that was good, healthier, Mm-hmm. I had always played in churches at the same time. So that's the healthy aspect right there.
Yeah.
And it's also great because you have a captive audience. I love it.
Yeah.
Most people don't move.
I played the bars in the churches too, which was a very odd thing, wasn't it? It's just like I would play a bar Saturday evening and go to church on Sunday morning and play.
As long as you weren't hungover, I guess you'd be okay.
Oh, I wasn't hungover. I was always a businessman. I didn't drink or get drunk.
I decided that early on in my career also, certainly not to drink when I was playing music. It was too important to me,
I just didn't drink at all. I drank some when I was young, but my mom and my dad were both alcoholics. I didn't want anything to do with it. So after I got old enough, but I love music like you, and but the bars was where we all started,
Right.
And I've told the story before, so I'm not going to tell it again because the audience has heard it so many times. But in short, I was playing in a bar, and we had to. It was back in the 70s when I first started. So I called the county mountie on the CB radio because a guy got stabbed in this place, and there was 4 guns from his grandson that wanted to shoot the guy that stabbed the old man. I get a hold of this county mountie, and I said, listen, I need a county mountie, and I explained the story. He goes, where you at, son? And that's how he said it. And I said, well, I'm in Sherman Tavern. Pause, and all of a sudden, he goes, oh, I'm not coming out there.
Do you remember the Gay Parita?
Yes.
In southeast Kansas.
That's something else that we'll have to. I haven't mentioned yet. We're both from the same area of Kansas over there originally. You're from Parsons,
I am.
And I'm from Oswego. But yeah, I do. That was a rough little
It
spot.
was, but they used to have even big band players back in the 30s and 40s. Guy Lombardo and such,
So my mom and them were all big on the dancing, the jitterbug. And all that. Of course, we were talking about Stricklands.
Yes.
So my mom was the Eads, and the Eadses and the Stricklands was all related. And so they used to all, go over to those dances.
Right. Well, the Stricklands, of course, were my mother's family. That was her maiden name.
Yeah.
And her father was Will Strickland. And her 2 brothers were Albert and Wayne Strickland, and they had an Alice Chalmer dealership in Oswego many years.
I remember that.
So
they had a 1965 Chevy truck that was always parked underneath that. And that's the same, wasn't the same truck, but the same year and same color truck I learned to drive in. So it was an old 4 or 5 speed. I forgot now.
65. Yeah, it's all kind of modern, really. The truck I remember was my grandpa's, probably around 47 or 49 Chevy pickup truck with the sideboards that you put on yourself. You know. That's one I remember.
How fun. So when did you move out of southeast Kansas up around Parsons?
It's in brief, moved to Texas, where I met my wife Andrea. We were in Denton, Texas, at a college. Basically at the same college at North Texas State, which is a big music school. It's now called University of North Texas. A lot of big band, jazz, that sort of thing. Also known for all kinds of music. But that was my graduate work. Before that, I had gone to school in Enid, Oklahoma, at Phillips University. Just a coincidence that it's my last name too. I got no benefits out of having the same last name. But that was, it was Parsons, Kansas for high school, up to high school, then Enid, Oklahoma, then Denton, Texas briefly, and Dallas for about 5 years after that.
Wow.
Then we moved together as a couple to New Mexico, Taos, New Mexico, which is basically how we got back to Missouri through New Mexico with a short stay in Austin, Texas. It's about 6 months. And then about 1984, 86, we moved back to Missouri, 85, and we were in Branson by 86.
Okay. So how many years does that make it now that you've been in Branson?
Branson 34, starting my 34th year, and I always remember because I am at Branson Christian Church as music director. I am the sole staff member, and that's where I've been for 34 years.
Okay. What styles of music do you do?
Are we okay on time? Okay, good.
Yeah, we're fine.
All right. Styles of music. I started out as a classical player, and I was pretty straight-laced. But I also loved Perry Como, and I loved big bands and Latin bands back then, the big Latin bands with all the movement and percussion. Wow. And I also was into drama and musicals and did a lot of drama and musicals. That was a lot of influence. Was very intrigued by jazz because of the improvisational aspect. Okay. So we've got in the church. I grew up in the church, so I've got church gospel, jazz influence, Broadway, and classical.
Wow.
And folk, of course, and folk music.
And folk, yeah. So it looks like that part of the country, there was just something about it because, you're from Parsons. I'm 20 miles down the road from Oswego, and I love the same thing. Your
voice sounds very familiar and comforting to me, by the way. That accent, I mean, it's the way people are supposed to talk, right?
Yeah, well, it's how I look at it, yes. And then we've got a lot in common. Like you lived in Dallas for 5 years. I lived in Dallas for 5 years.
Oh, when were you there?
Well, I was just a little kid. Okay. I was born in Tulsa. We were visiting my aunt. And but we lived in Dallas, so we went back to Dallas for about 5. When I was 5, we left Dallas, went to Oswego to visit my grandfolks, which was my dad's folks, but we just never did go back to Dallas. He just decided to stay there, so that's how we got to Oswego. And I'm going to tell you, I was born in Tulsa, and I've got to say this. People need to know this. I was circumcised when I was born. Messed me up. I couldn't walk for a year. We'll be back right after this message with our guest, Rod Phillips.
Hello folks, my name's Jason Richardson. I'm the lead guitar player for Kelly's Country Junction, and I'm here to tell you about MJT guitars made in Carthage, Missouri. If you would like a custom-made vintage-style guitar, then you need to talk to Mark Jenny. He'll help you out with the style, feel, and sound you are looking for. They specialize in custom-made finishes and are priced affordable, made with you in mind for the perfect sound and fit. MJT guitars, made for the working man.
Okay, we're back with our guest tonight on Spotlight on the Ozarks, Mr. Rod Phillips from Branson, Missouri. Originally, if you were just with us, you know that he was from Parsons, Kansas, which is my neck of the woods from up around Oswego. We were visiting before we came on the air, and you said something about had family or something in Chautauqua.
I did. My father was born actually in Chautauqua, and my grandpa, his father, was living there. They were sharecroppers
Okay.
back in the day. And the other side of the family were rich because they actually owned land.
Okay.
Well, they were homesteaders, but you know the difference between. Well, I'm not. This is not a joke, but there's, that sounds like a joke to start
Yeah,
with. But
it starts
the
like
difference
one.
between sharecroppers and home owners or homesteaders. Sharecroppers actually farmed the land that belonged to somebody else, and that's the way my dad grew up. And they were pretty poor folks.
Yeah.
My mother's side of the family, they were one step up the ladder. They were farmers also, but they had homesteaded their land, so they owned it,
Wow.
or were owning, getting where they owned it.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you still have family up around Parsons?
I do. I have a few relatives on both sides. My dad had 11 in his family, 10 actually. He had a twin who died early, and my mother had 9 in her family. So I had lots of uncles and aunts from around there and cousins that remain. Every year we go back for a reunion in Oswego, Kansas, at one of the little community centers or something.
Yeah.
And I know fewer and fewer people, It's just I only know because I lost a couple of aunts this year and a couple of uncles, both.
Yeah, I've got, not near the people back there that I used to know, and especially family-wise, but there's still a few, but not like it was. What are you holding there, Rod?
This is a mandolin, F model mandolin. It's a Weber, and it's known mostly for being a bluegrass instrument.
Yeah.
It started out being something other than that. It's actually more akin to a violin. It's tuned the same way as a violin, except it's got double strings. It's used a pick to pick with.
Yeah.
But I've been picking a lot of mandolin the last few years. A lot of fun for me.
I don't pick a mandolin. I play mandolin. I chord and sing. If I depending on what the song is. But I'm not a picker. So why don't you go ahead and pick something for these folks?
An Irish jig.
Yeah. What was that? Have a name?
That's it'll come to me. They have some very, very interesting names, That's called Haste to the Wedding.
Haste to the Wedding.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever get to work with over at Silver Dollar City? Or?
My first year I played actually with Rodney Dillard, very well-known bluegrass player in.
Was he with Andy Griffith?
He was with Andy Griffith. He was the one that had the dopey look,
Yeah.
Rodney would tell you that. His name...
he may be related to us.
Yeah,
I don't
possibly, possibly. Most of us are in that part of the country, and never mind. But no, I've played with Rodney Dillard, known for bluegrass, and his music is bluegrass and traditional and gospel, and I play piano mostly. So he was expanding out into a little broader sound, more than just bluegrass, like the, what were they called, the Darlin family on the Griffith, Andy Griffith show.
Yeah.
But mandolin has come along of late for me. I think I have bluegrass music in my blood, really do.
Okay.
That's because my grandfather, on my mother's side, was a square dance caller and a fiddler.
Okay.
And I have a new song. I hadn't actually planned to play it today, but it goes like this. It's about Grandpa Willie, okay? So he's the one from Oswego. Grandpa Willie was a fiddle. Started over because it's in present tense.
Okay.
Grandpa Willie is a fiddling man. He farms in the fields and he fiddles when he can. Around the kitchen table when the evening falls. Grandma Oni, Wayne, Albert, 7 sisters in all. So, boss, queen to get your cows home, cowbells playing in the pasture far. He goes on and on.
Yeah, I like that. Everybody played music back, or at least our families, like the Eads I keep telling you about. They all played fiddles. They played guitars. They played pianos.
Right.
Whatever, they played something, And both sides of my family did, but especially the Eads, and they did a lot of barn dances and all that. And then the 40s come along, and all the kids like jitterbugging music. And then my Uncle Harold and Uncle Bill, which people in Oswego knew, especially Uncle Bill, he was the lion fisherman that was there for years, but he played. They played Western swing, a lot of Western swing. So I cut my teeth on folk music and country music and rock and roll and big band and same as you. And it sounds like we play a lot of the same instruments.
Sure. Well, I love Western swing music. I wish I had a band to play it in. I have a couple of bands that plays some of that music, and not so much because it's a fusion of jazz and bluegrass and folk music.
I wrote a song the other day, and I made my own track to it because nobody could really do it, and it's jazz. I call it folk jazz.
Folk jazz.
Yeah, and
so I have a feeling you're going to sing a little of it for me.
No, I'm not.
No, okay.
No. But it's on YouTube, so if you want to look it up, I can't think of the name of it. You Don't Love Me Anymore. That's the name of it. Yeah, look it up on YouTube. Oh, it's a wonderful song. But anyway, so what about some of the people you worked with in Branson?
Well, I worked with Rodney Diller that first year or so, and we did a little traveling, but played mostly in Echo Hollow, the big outdoor amphitheater. Okay. And goodness, we had crowds of 2,000-3,000 and more outdoors some of the time. Big. It was the biggest. The time it was the biggest venue on the park. Wow. It may still be. It may still be an outdoor venue. There's good people there. But right after that, I played solo on the park. But then I got hooked up with Jim Stafford and played with Jim for 5 years.
Wow.
I believe that was from about 1990 to 95.
Wow.
To start with, and played with him straight for 5 years there.
Well, that's when Branson was really on fire, wasn't it?
It was. It had really picked up and kicked up because of the 60 Minutes program. A lot of people coming in. And for the first time, the stars were coming. Jim played at the, goodness gracious, the theater that first started having people there was Lodge of the Ozarks. What's that right there? And what is that guy's name? Goodness, Roy Clark. It's
Roy Clark, yeah.
Who first started bringing in some of his friends. And Jim Stafford was one of them.
You can yell. We don't mind.
That's my.
Roy Clark.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
you, V. My housemate. We're going to be playing some music here in a little bit. But then after Jim, after 5 years, I played with a couple of other people in studios. The Legends played. I was music director of the Legends when they first came to town, and we opened in the Grand Palace to a crowd of 4,000 people, and I was the music director.
Wow.
It was probably the tensest moment in my life because I had a lot of pressure being the music director and bringing 10 acts on stage, from Elvis Presley to the Blues Brothers and just all these people. Yeah. And we had 9 dancers and an orchestra of 9 or 10 or 11 professional people, and I had to coordinate all of this. Yeah. And our opening night was 4,000 people, and I don't think we ever had probably over about 400 every night after that in the Grand Palace.
What's probably the biggest crowd you ever played for?
Well, that would be at halftime of the 6th game of the World Series in 1974. I was with the New Christie Minstrels, and we were on the road, and we were asked to play and sing national anthem. So I was out there at second base, and we played for, it was probably 40 or 50,000 people. I don't know.
Well, you got me beat. My biggest one was a little over 14,000 probably. So yeah, you got me.
Well,
I've never played in the stadium. See, I'm not the big time like that.
My average crowd nowadays is about 3 or 4 people, not 1,000.
Yeah. It's like they say, what will you bring the crowd to? I say, 4, 5, sometimes 6. But I went to Branson some years ago, and we were talking to Buck Trent, and Buck said we have the same problem, because I was joking with him. I said, Buck, I have big crowds. There's 20, maybe 22 people. So he goes, that's us. He said, sometimes we got 16, sometimes we got 40. That was the morning show.
Yes.
And so he said, we're all seeing that. And that's been probably 6 years ago or 7 years ago.
It's gotten really spread out. And I've played in a lot of shows that had just a handful of people at the time. Jim Stafford came back after being away for a couple of years, and after having full crowds for the 5 years that I played with him, we had sold out, in 800-900 seats. Wow. He had just a handful of people. And he's not the only one that had trouble drawing people. So
yeah, some of the ones I really enjoyed in Branson was Jim Stafford, and we had, what was the other guy? Tarzan,
Ray
Stevens, yeah, and then you had, of course, Roy Clark, and I loved Roy. But then what was another one? The fiddle player.
Well, other than Shoji?
I can't say his name.
Shoji
okay.
Tabuchi.
Yeah.
Most people mispronounce it, but it's Shoji Tabuchi.
I would definitely mispronounce it, but these were shows back when I really liked going to Branson in the heyday. That man, they were packed all. Mickey Gilley.
Yep.
His show. I went to his show 3 or 4 times. I loved to watch Mickey.
And then Andy Williams came to town, and Pat Boone, and Roy Clark, and all the people that he brought with Jim Stafford.
Yeah.
Wayne Newton was there for a while. Just lots of people.
We were talking with. Terry Wayne Sanders was talking about.
Know Terry well.
I love Terry, but we were talking about. We were just talking about him, Andy Williams.
Yes.
And then also from PBS, Tom Carter. He's a director over there at the Ozarks magazine. He knew him real well, and everybody just loved him. But I never got to see him. He's the one that got away from me. I never did get to see one of his shows. So we're going to break off for a commercial, but we're going to come back with Rod Phillips here in just a minute for a recap. And I've enjoyed myself, Rod. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Terry Wayne Sanders, inviting you to join me and Kelly James Barker on Spotlight on the Ozarks right here. We have a lot of fun. You're going to get some scoop on the Ozarks, things you never heard of before, and stories you can tell your grandkids. That's right. Join us right here on Spotlight on the Ozarks.
Hey, Georgette, did you know Kelly's Country Junction comes on this station?
And Kelly Lee James is my favorite.
Well, a lot of folks say I look like him.
In your dreams.
Hard to believe you're Joanne's little sister. I met you were 6 years old in that sandbox. I should have let that cat covered you up.
Homer, listen.
You listen.
No.
Don't start on me. Okay, we're back with Spotlight on the Ozarks with my guest, Rod Phillips. We were talking while these commercials were going. We just got a lot in common, not only from being back in the Kansas part of you like baseball.
I did. See, we cut out all the interesting stuff. I wish that stuff was going on. No, but I did love baseball because Mickey Mantle was from our part of the country. He's from northeastern Oklahoma right there. And was just every boy's hero back then. I was born in 49. What year were you born?
58.
58. Okay, so I'm a few years older than you. But Mickey was big, when I was growing up. Back when you would watch the New York Yankees and there'd be this grainy picture on TV, But I knew back in the day when I was 10 years old, I knew all the pitchers' win-loss records, their ERAs. I knew the batting averages of all the players, certainly on the Yankees because everybody rooted for the Yankees back then.
Yeah, me too. I knew all that little information. Every boy, red-blooded American boy knew about baseball, just about, What are you doing these days, and how do people get a hold of you if they want you to come play?
Well, I was going to continue with that vein. I'm one of these guys that stayed in athletics my whole life. I didn't play baseball, but I got interested in playing tennis and running. And I got into doing multi-sports, triathlons, adventure races, things that involved a lot of different sports, even winter sports, because I was in New Mexico and I learned to cross-country ski. And I've stayed very active doing that. I still run, and you're talking about your knees or your polio that you had. But I have some knee problems after 45 years of running. But the tennis is still very important to me in sports. I did 1,300 competitions in about 40 years there. And the house is overrun with T-shirts and running medals and everything. It's kind of crazy, but I always said that the activity that I do during the day, or as a break from sitting still and playing music for hours at a time, was a good balance. So I was blessed in that way to like both things. In fact, when I was in college, I hadn't decided yet whether I was going to be an athletic teacher, gym teacher, or a music teacher. And someplace I went to junior college in Parsons, Kansas. There, my first fall semester out of high school, and they had to declare a major, so I just kind of went music, and so that sort of a defining moment for me,
I love music, and I teach music some.
Is that right? I was never much of a teacher, even though I got a graduate.
Well, I didn't say I was much of a teacher.
Well, I got a graduate degree in music.
They're telling that. Well, here's the deal. They're telling us our time's up, but it's my show.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
it's all yours. I was just
Thank
going
you
to
anyway, timekeeper.
I was going to say the way to reach me is my website. I have a booking site at Gig Salad, which is gigsalad.com.
Okay.
And that is out of Springfield, and it displays 8 or 10 of the instruments that I play, and I still play. I get calls for accordion and harp and cello and weddings and harmony and all those things. But my other site is my web page, which is Rod Phillips -sing-song.
Okay.
So that's if you say Rod Phillips and songwriter in a search, you can find me in Branson. You can usually find me.
You're also on Facebook.
I am, and what I'm doing nowadays is I am doing a lot of home concerts, small venues.
Okay.
I've got one in Oswego, Kansas, at the church, the old Presbyterian church in Oswego, 2 weeks from today.
We might have to come over and see that. Well, no, we'll be working 2 weeks from today. So,
But that's the fun part for me. I always played other people's music, playing on the road with the Christie Minstrels or Michael Martin Murphy or Jim Stafford or Rodney Dillard, and now I play music for myself, the music that I've written.
Again, we've kind of went full circle. I didn't play with all those guys. That would have been nice, but I played with some pretty good names. But now I'm just playing the folk music I like.
Yeah.
It may not be fancy, but I'm loving doing it.
If it's something you've written, your heart is in it, and that's when the music becomes very compelling.
Yeah.
If you got a story that goes with it, and the story and the song, and that's what it's about.
That's it. May I say before we go, I like your hat.
I like your hat.
Thank you. We are the Hat Boys from Kansas. So, Rod, it's been great having you on. I want to have you back again sometime.
Sounds good. I'd like to.
And also, of course, we do this show, but we're getting ready to do another show called Kelly James in the 70s Review, and you're going to play some music on that one.
Sounds good. I'll do it.
Yeah. This has been Spotlight on the Ozarks. I'm Kelly James Barker, and my guest has been Rod Phillips from Branson, Missouri. We'll be back next week with another good artist. I don't know who, because I never know who's going to show up. But we'll see you then.
Good, Kelly. No jokes?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, actually, I was going to say, I went jogging the other morning. I didn't mean to. I didn't know the police was out that early. We'll see you next week.
Jogging. Peace.
you